Hi, I'm Anke Summerhill from Minotti London, and today for our Minotti sofa chat we have Theo Williams. Welcome, Theo. Thank you for coming.
Anke. Thank you for having me.
How would you like to describe yourself?
That's a good question. I'm a designer. Historically, I'm a designer, and then over the years, I've become more of a creative director or design director.
And what would you say is the difference between a designer and a creative and design director?
Well, that's another good question. Well, basically, when I studied industrial design, I've designed products.
Yeah.
I was focused just on designing products, and then along the way, the clients I had or the opportunities I had, I suddenly started thinking, like every designer, because we're all nitpicking and entrepreneurial and all the rest of it, I suddenly started thinking, well, I don't like the packaging. And, you can imagine for any client, the window display, and then, actually the graphics aren't quite right. And so one thing led to another, and the next thing I was offered positions to be creative director in a number of companies and design director, which kept me involved in the product, but it led me away, and it just took me back a little bit where I could then sort of intervene with other designers and sort of create the direction and strategy for brands.
And did you like that?
I love it.
Yeah.
It really is something that I enjoy. I'm a real process person. I love the context of everything and how it fits together, and designing the product is just one of those things.
Yes, it's just part of it.
Which a lot of designers get fixated on the product and sometimes can't see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that could be commercially as well as creatively.
Yeah. So you're obviously very creative, because when I went to your website, what I really, really liked about your website, when you click on My Journey, it's very visual. Rather than have sort of a boring print with and then this and then that, you have everything in pictures, which for me was perfect, because I could just see at a glance your whole journey. Now, for people who haven't seen that lovely journey on your website, do you want to tell us about your first journey, really, when you graduated and you decided to go to Italy to find fame and fortune and great design?
Thank you. That was. Thank you for the comment on the webpage. It is something that I do even now when the clients I tend to have always a wall where I scribble and draw in front of everyone rather than present in the classic way. But
do you think that's a designer thing, because it's very visual?
I think so, yeah. I think ultimately, drawing circles and arrows and joining the dots, and it's kind of, it is a much more expressive way of describing what you want. And that's what I did on the webpage. And that journey started back in Manchester.
Yeah.
I was an industrial design I was studying, and I switched from graphics, industrial design, fine arts, etc.
Yeah.
And I was walking down Albert Square, and I'll never forget it, because there was an old picture of Alberto Alessi, Alessandro Mendini, Branzi, and Aldo Rossi, I think, and they were all dressed up in workman clothes.
Yeah.
Lined up in the factory with the lathes and the machinery, and in front of it was this Philips Stark lemon squeezer. Now, I didn't know, there was no Google then, you didn't know anything.
First time you saw it?
First time I saw the logo Alessi, and it's my favourite and worst product in a way, because I looked at it and thought, that's not what they're teaching me at college, and it doesn't work, it's too expensive, but I loved it, and that was it. I waited a few months, bought one, sat there in the kitchen, I just looked at it, and I thought, I want to go there. So I researched where that was. It was Milan. Yeah. And that's literally what took me there.
That really was not, well, I guess a little random.
Yeah, it was random, considering that the sort of work I was doing at college. But so I flew to Milan. I went to stay for a couple of weeks at some friend of a friend. Yeah. And I ended up going through the alphabet of all the architects I'd read up in the library about. So I knocked on pushed the citofono in Castiglione's office. Yeah. He was fantastic, so I was there for a while.
It's really nice, kind of the days before Google, because, you would have before Googled them and emailed them and probably not gotten anywhere, but you physically went and made that effort.
Well, that made a massive difference. And of course, the Italians, being Italians, they opened the door and they were really receptive. Yeah. I had this big portfolio with a big, huge zip, no iPad, walking around, and they were fantastic, the Italians. They really took me, and that was 1990.
So you stayed in Italy for quite a while, right?
Well, yeah, actually I was there for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying 16 years.
16 years, yes.
And I feel like I grew up in Italy.
Yeah.
I was made in England, but I grew up in...
You grew up in Italy.
In Italy. No, I wouldn't have had that opportunity, because they gave me, apart from the opportunities to design and work closely in collaboration, the factories were there as well, and so everything sort of you had a wide spectrum of learning, really.
Yeah, and do you find England had changed in the design world in your absence? Did you notice a difference from when you left, when you came back?
Yes, definitely. I think when I left, I was taught that you would finish college, you take your portfolio around, you wait for agencies and you get a job, and then you kind of do what you're told, sort of thing.
Yeah.
By the time I came back, there's independent designers, entrepreneurs, everywhere. And
Yes.
I'd noticed it already in Milan, because during the Salone, you'd see all people coming over. You know, so my whole living room was full of bodies staying at my place, because no one could afford to stay anywhere.
No.
And so you started to notice all the shows, you know, there's pop-up shows by English designers here and there.
Yeah.
And you notice this huge independence and this surgence.
Yeah. Okay, so do you feel having lived abroad sort of broadened your design horizons?
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
so. I think not just because of the industrial design or product design or the design industry, but it's given me a real creative and commercial balance since I've moved back as well. I've certainly moved into the more commercial side, and I've managed to marry the two. But I think also because of the culture, you learn a language. I mean, when I used to come back in the early 90s with a bag of rucola to sort of say to my friends, taste this. I mean, I'd never heard of it before. So, you know, you sort of get involved. You know, I mean, you can go skiing from Milan in half an hour. It's not, or an hour at least. It's not a something you do once a year. So again, the lifestyle all shifts as well. So everything wrapped up.
So talking, because obviously you've been doing this for a while, do you feel that it's harder being a designer these days, because there's so many things you have to take into consideration with global warming and sustainability, whereas before you'd think, oh, I want to design, or you get asked to design something and you didn't have to think, or well, maybe you had to, but people didn't really think about it so much.
Yeah, there's it's definitely harder, but the opportunities perhaps, it's definitely harder, but it's also suddenly started to open up because, of course, the opportunities and the technology. I think it's, you know, the designers have a lot of empathy with a lot of things as customers, or the sustainability and so on. So I think the added value of design is probably more important now. It feels like we're going through a fourth or fifth industrial revolution with everything, you know, with the technology and so on.
Yeah.
So I think the industry understand the importance of designers. I mean, good design, good business, as much as bad design is bad business in a way. I think, but the value proposition might have to change a bit, how we approach that. And certainly in my past job, we introduced quite a lot of behavioural changes within the structure and the design strategy, where we tried to avoid the very fact of, in my day, just design it because we loved it. I mean, to be honest, we didn't really think about anything.
No.
We just thought we'd make it, and that was it. So now you have design values, a number of them. We talk about, we talk less about seasonality and more about longevity.
Yes.
We talk less about a linear approach to a circular approach. That I own this, we could share this. You know, so these kinds of things in these big companies, once that starts to get embedded, you start to see that the designer's opportunity is also coming from the insights of research and technology and material and the sustainability, and not just because it's a great idea they thought of, although that is important as well, because they need to generate those great ideas. So it's a meeting in the middle. We've left it a bit late, but we are fixing things, but how it's not quite tipped the point of a positive impact yet, but we're getting close. So for designers, I think it's a bright future in that sense.
Is there a design that you wish was yours,
Oh.
that you would have loved to have been the designer of?
There is one in particular I don't even own, and that I often look at Konstantin Gritich's lamp for floss, and it's the working man lamp, and I can't remember the name of it. It's got a funny little handle, and it's got a cone.
Yeah, I know.
I particularly like that. I've never bought one.
We have to Google it.
Yeah, and I love that one.
Show a picture of it.
There's a number of designs I've got at home that I particularly like, but they are odd, old, maybe Italian or from a second-hand shop. There's sort of old traditional designs that I quite like as well.
Did you try to make changes when you were working? You worked with John Lewis, right?
Yeah. Changes were made. So Habitat, there was quite a big change made there.
So that was your first experience
in England? That was my first
England,
big experience as in a big retail. And then I jumped to John Lewis, And we made several changes there simply because they wanted to grow own brand. So although John Lewis has own brand, a lot of that might be supplier-based and be exclusive through wholesalers and traders and so on, apart from their textiles and pattern work. So they wanted to go on own brand and start manufacturing there more and more, and not just for margins, but for IP, for et cetera, all sorts of things, and for customer offer and so on. So that was a big influence I had there. We launched a brand called House.
Yes, I know. And I think it's very noticeable. I think I can tell. You know, I didn't know of you personally then, but I could see, I lived obviously here in England, and I said, oh, there's a change. You know, it's getting better. There's nice, affordable design pieces in John Lewis.
That's great. I'm glad you noticed because they had a very clear goal. And affordability was one of them. And I love that. I mean,
but the nice thing about John Lewis is that's affordability, but it's also quality. It's not, you know, rubbish. Anything you would have changed at all in your journey?
And that might be some advice for some. I think what happened in the early days was the opportunities and the jumping around in Milan, and I wish I'd sort of cultivated the relationship with some of the people I work with a little bit longer. And that's maybe a personal thing. I don't know, the other designers have found the same, but I kind of designed some products with them and then thought, oh, I'll jump onto that. And I wish I had stayed a bit longer and worked hard. And I did eventually with some clients, but... it's
probably youthful impatience.
Wanting to move on. A lovely way to put it.
Hindsight is a great thing. Lovely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. Love talking to you and finding out more about you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see some more, please make sure to click on the link to subscribe.